drug abuse, cancer,
measles, diabetes.
Good evening once again, and welcome to our first Doctor on Call program for 2026. We welcome you back. Of course, it is indeed a pleasure to be back, and I hope that our ardent listeners and viewers of Doctor on Call hope you had an enjoyable Christmas, and you all set for a very productive new year. I also trust that you have recommitted to improving your wellness as one of your major goals for 2026. Yes, indeed. Well, Doc is back with us, and it's really good to have her. Doc, good evening and welcome back. And, I trust you enjoyed your holidays, and the new year has started pretty well for you. How are you?
I'm fine. Well, let me say good evening to everyone who's listening to us or who's listening or watching us tonight. And I wish everybody the absolute best for this year. Last year was a year of challenges. And we started the year with a very unfortunate, very, very, very unfortunate geopolitical circumstance. I want to call it that. The invasion of Venezuela. We're not being political, but it's real. It's next door. Right? I always tell them, if you go to Trinidad and you're going to Caracas, you go to Trinidad, and when you get up in the air from Trinidad, which is exactly half hour from here, flying gate to gate, when you get up in the air, you see Caracas's lights. We're not far from Venezuela, just in case we think we are. It's unfortunate because I think we have been already impacted by having a big military force like the U.S., on our little bit of territory. And I'm sure a lot of people understand, and I'm sure there are a lot of people whose memories have been invoked in very negative ways. We don't want this to happen again. We don't want it to happen anywhere in our zone of peace. And I'm going to tell people now, if you think what happened in Venezuela has kind of ignited emotional, psychological responses that affect you in any way, I think you should get some help, because this is no easy feat, and we don't want to continue this year. You don't want to start the year being sick, okay? I've been away for a little while, and for many reasons we weren't here, but hear me. This is just a continuation of our lives. The new year always brings a time to kind of look into yourself and think of what can you do better. Is that the new year or your birthday? Those are the times when we tend to do a lot of introspection. So I can tell you from now, if you think you have anything you want to deal with, okay, it's like going to confession. When you feel you want to deal with it and start your life on a different foot, you go deal with whatever challenges you have as far as your moral life and spiritual life is concerned. But I'm seeing people who think they may have been affected by the fact, a lot of us have relatives in Venezuela, and it's very unsettling because you look at what's happening elsewhere. I just listened to the U.S. news, and it's really very unsettling, right? Very, very unsettling. The threat of having people whom we don't know, who don't come from Grenada, being deported to Grenada is a threat. Okay, it's a threat to our feeling of safety. It's one thing if you get your own people in, when you have to take other people whose cultural practices are different and who might just have kind of crimes that we don't really want to have occurring on our country. It's very unsettling. So I'm going to say, find a way to deal with this if this is upsetting to you. But this year should be good because we're going to start this year, each one thinking of himself and thinking about the people that we're responsible for, like our children and our elderly who can't take care, because we're going back to brass tacks. We're going back to looking for disease, going back to preventing disease. And we're going to talk a little tonight about why we do all them tests. That they cost a little money. Well, a lot of money for some people. But why do we do them? We want to talk about that because they're a very important part of the practice of medicine and providing healthcare generally. So.
Right. That being said, and of course, this is very important, Doc, and we definitely will get to that. But I just wanted to go back a little bit, and you did mention how the year began. But 2025, I mean, we've made numerous calls. We've, encouraged, people to be mindful of the health, because one of the things I think we tend to miss is that we can get sick, and we feel unwell, we lie in a bed, or we may have to go to the hospital, we may have to do a surgery, different things when you're not well. But it doesn't only stop there, it goes beyond just you. And we've always made the call that these are things that we need to consider, because being well, being in a state of wellness can actually prevent a lot of downsides. And, we trust that people would recommit to ensuring that they improve their wellness as we move into the new year. But Doc, 2025, being in the medical field, what would you say 2025 was in terms of our health care system? Do you think 2025 was probably an improvement from previous years, or are we probably still where we are and fighting to move ahead?
Well, I think this is my Sonia Nixon's opinion.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so I think we still have a lot of the deficits that we have faced all these years. I think there's just so much to be done to upgrade the healthcare delivery system to even, I'm going to say optimal, not even to excellent. But I think there are a lot of things that are happening, and I think the system is growing. One of the things I found more prevalent, probably because I'm in medicine and I look at it, is the whole reporting of what's going on. What are especially when it comes to communicable diseases, the flu, the information is out there. I think there's been some efforts made to inform John public of the things that are happening. We've heard about, and we've criticized, but that's okay, the new hospital. It's going to be a research hospital. Guess what? We're lucky, we're good, because we'll be able to look at our own data and the data from the region and be able to make even better decisions for ourselves and the people who are like us as regards to health. There are some internal changes I know that happen in the hospital. You have to develop your staff in order for them to be able to deliver the care and deliver the quality of care that our patients need. And that's not going to happen in a day. But I know that it is happening, okay? Developing standards. It costs, and we don't have more money than we had 4 years ago, not really much more, right? I know there's been more money put into the budget, but it's not like they're pumping, a lot of money. It means also that we're going to have people paying towards health, make, some form of health insurance. I think the government is looking at that again, at having a national health insurance, which is very important, so that at least we have a fund where funds and money can be acquired to contribute to sustain the healthcare system. I think in terms of information on diseases and stuff, there's been a lot more information shared. I think there must have been a lot of awakening. Look, 5 or 6 years ago, at this time, we were all 2 weeks having heard of COVID. COVID was in China at this time. By the end of the month, COVID is declared a global a pandemic, right? Because it's all over the place. And we know millions of people have died. We lost 200 people in a month. That's a lot of people, okay? We lost 200 people in 1 month. That month of concentrated right after Carnival, when we decided that we're not going to pay attention to the advice that we were given. We're going to go outside and ramage and come back home, and we felt like, and we did, the most vulnerable of our population got COVID and died. All right. So I think we understand that there's that. Yeah, there's been a lot of talk about the vaccine, this or the vaccine that. But I can tell you, I know the vaccine as a nurse in New York. who were looking at their colleagues dying. I know two persons personally, two nurses who just died. One went to bed and didn't wake up. She went to work, went to bed and she died from COVID. So I'm saying we have come a little way. We understand. I see people wearing masks. We hear about the flu or a bad cold going on, and you see people around town wearing masks. So I think generally we are a little more aware of where we are, who we are, what is our responsibility in relation to making sure that our personal care, right, and our lives, me, what am I going to do for me, right, is taken care of. So our lives are taken care of. So I think knowledge has been more, and information has been more available. We have a long way to go, but I think if we keep on building as we are, we will get there.
Yes, all right, lovely.
One of the things that has been spoken of, and really we have to get back to that, is the insistence on us using the primary care services for basic care. Because primary care has two levels. You have primary prevention, right, and the primary care where you do care before you end up in hospital. So the prevention, including things like information on vaccine, information about different health stuff, getting your vaccines, getting your blood pressure checked, eating properly, keeping your weight down, all of those things, right? And then, of course, if you already have diabetes or hypertension, you actually can still be managed at the primary care level, which is what your GP does, your general practitioner or your primary care physician, or at the level of the health center. So I think there's a greater thrust, and I really hope that our population will work with the healthcare system to ensure that there's greater harmony. There was introduction last year. Was it last year? No, it's the year before. I don't even remember. The years are passed quickly. But there's introduction of the new protocol for managing hypertension, which works. Okay, the government has ensured that there are medications in the pharmacies, and medications that are not too expensive but are known to give success in managing hypertension. Of course, there are other things you have to do, like lose weight, contain amount of salt, make sure your sugar under control if you do have diabetes, and all of those things. But the intervention at the primary care level is available, and hopefully this can get even better this year.
Right, wonderful. So, we just coming from Christmas. And we know we all overindulge a little bit, and the sweets.
Speak for yourself, okay?
The sweets, the alcohol,
the drink.
Yes, so much.
The volume we consume.
We get involved in, and you mentioned just now there was this flu that's been still going around, so much so that in fact I was talking to a physician over the weekend, and he was telling me how many people was coming in with that, and in fact some people waited so long that some people had to be given some form of antibiotics, and so there are a lot of things happening, and sometimes you take these things for granted, but you need to pay attention. So coming from that, and the thing is, it happens every year, after Carnival, after Christmas. I mean, it happens every year. It's like part of the whole seasonal thing. But as a people, are we seriously paying attention to that and doing what we need to do to probably protect or minimize, I think that might be better, minimize the risk of all of these conditions that can place us in a state of unwellness, so to speak?
So I think that's something we have to continuously preach and remind people. We have to teach people how to be responsible for themselves, okay? Individuals need to understand where the responsibilities begin and end, and you should be able to know when it's time for you to go to the doctor. You shouldn't be going to the doctor when, after common cold, you have pneumonia. You should have already contacted somebody right? If 3 or 4 days you're not settling, common cold goes away in 3 days. 3 to 5 days, you should be feeling better. Certainly after the third day, should be worse, and then you start getting better. But I think one of the things I'd like to see us engage in as a population of people is us talking about health in the workplace. We spend so much time talking about clothes and hair and fingernail and gossip and all the rest. But talking about how do we stay healthy? How do you communicate with your male friends about getting their prostate checked? About, if there's a man who is accustomed to getting his prostate checked, when he goes to have a beer, does he bring it up? Or he and his friends sit down, they come to my patio and the guys are sitting talking. Are we talking about how we're going to stay well? The conversation has to change, right? The dialogue has to change in relation to longevity. We talk about investments. We talk about other things. We talk about the new cars. We talk about safety on the road. We talk about a lot of things. But when it comes to how do I manage myself and how do I make myself and my family or the people I know in my community stay well, I don't think we're talking about that enough. And that's the dialogue I'd like to see people engage in for the year. Right? If you're going to ask the government, if the government has a responsibility, it takes it on. That's the responsibility of the Ministry of Health to ensure that best care is available to the population. But do we want best care where you have to spend all this money on dialysis and money on people who have strokes or ICU, rehabilitation, all the rest? Or you want us to be able to make sure everybody has vaccines, and we want to make sure everybody has access to we can afford for everybody to be screened for X, Y, Z. What do we really want? What do we really deserve more than anything else? Right? So I would like us to start to engage in your women's group at church, in your office, wherever it is. Start talking about how are we going to keep ourselves healthy this year. And above all, I'd like to see the men participate in that kind of activity, because they're the ones who die prematurely. They die 4 years, on an average 4 years before women, right? We've seen a lot of young men die from preventable diseases, chronic disease that can be avoided if we live a different lifestyle. Are we going to decrease the amount of alcohol that we consume? Are we going to smoke less? Are we going to stop using so much cannabis so that our mental health can get, especially in our young boys, that our mental health can be a little better, that we can be more productive, that we can have more serious lives? There's a whole lot of things that each person can do to ensure that they are healthy and well.
And I totally agree. And while, for example, we do our part here, in sharing information on every Tuesday evening around this time, and whatever else we do. Is it enough? Are the people out there getting the message so much so that they understand the importance of doing that? Should more be done in terms of public education and public awareness? I mean, where are we?
I agree with you, and because I think one of the things we have to consider really seriously is the language we speak. If we're gonna educate somebody on the flu, okay, what are you gonna say to the Grenadian? What does average Grenadian understand? Right? What you're saying? Are we speaking the people's language? Are we speaking the language where they are? Are we meeting people where they are to inform them? Or do we just do things on the radio and the TV, or we send out pamphlets? People don't read no pamphlets, so don't even waste your ink. Okay? What is it? How do people most recognize and respond to information? And is information highfalutin? And people feel that, you're not writing that for me. That's not for me because I don't even understand what you're saying, right? How are we going to make sure that the message is culturally appropriate, right? So that people can understand. Health education must be designed in a way that the populace can really understand what is going on and identify with the message that is going on. I've met women when I talk about screening for breast cancer who tell me that can't catch them. Right? I've heard more than one woman say, doctor, that can't catch me. Right? Without understanding, it's not a matter of catching, and you have to spend 5-10 minutes talking, and you can see them soft and little, but you have to come back. We have to be always, the message cannot be one off. The message has to be constantly out there, there must also be changes in the community so that our children should not have to be consuming so much sugar sweetened beverages at school. Are we going to have policy? What are we going to do so that our children don't experience chronic obesity, right? Are we going to make sure that every school has water, possibly some coconut water or some fresh fruit juices? Are we going to buy those, I don't know, them neon colors that don't really exist in real life? Are we going to allow those to still pervade our shelves in the supermarket, and the boxes of cereal where the children have, there's some crazy looking characters on the front that all these bright colors and intrigue the children? Are we going to really be able to give our children the healthy foods they need? Are we going to encourage parents to step back a little and to understand that because you did not eat KFC, Lord, I don't want to say KFC, did not eat fast foods, I'm sorry, KFC, because you did not eat fast food, never get an opportunity because your parents were too poor, means that you have to make up, that you're now living vicariously to your children? No. Are we going to follow North American practice? Because we see they say they're not giving their children vaccines. My children have died from measles in the US and in Canada.
Yeah.
Especially Canada, because there's some people who decided not giving their children vaccines and take away their lives. So there are a lot of things that we have to do, and we have to send a message so that our own population can identify with the challenges that exist, right? And see how, if we do not practice that which is necessary, we're actually going back in this time when AI can write a whole program for you.
Yeah.
Right?
Indeed. So, Doc, let's talk now a little bit about, as we move forward. You mentioned just now the issue of health insurance, but with that, there are also challenges. And one of the first questions that comes up is where's that money coming from? Can central government fund that, or are people going to have to contribute? And yes, and I'm sure people will like to, but then again, there's another question: do we have enough? We are barely, making what we need to for our daily survival. And then while we understand that contribution is in our best interest, but is it really available? Are we going to dig a hole to fill another hole?
So hear me now. It's very important that we look at this, because we can get caught in this vicious cycle, okay?
Uh-huh.
It is important, and I think every Grenadian deserves to have access to health care. Good health care.
Yeah.
And sometimes it may be a situation that as the grass grows, the horse still starves. But we had to make the grass grow. And I think it is important. I think the government is making a good decision starting with primary care. And I wish people would use their primary care services, right? So that you don't have to turn up at the hospital because you have a cold. That can go to health center. You don't have to turn up at the hospital because you have an asthmatic attack, unless you have not been settling down at home. Do you understand what I'm saying? You should not be turned up at the hospital with your sugar a little out of control, because you should be able to do that at home or go into your primary care physician, right? So I think people do deserve to have basic standard of primary care in particular. And if you can focus on having a strong primary care system, it means that we're not going to have people who are as ill. This is not a year. But it's going to take time. As people understand, I can solve my problems, or I can prevent my problems, right? By using my primary care services. Then we don't have to go and clog up the hospital, because there's early identification of disease, early intervention, management at primary care level, etc. No. Where the money comes from, I don't know. The government's responsibility is to find a sustainable method of health insurance, right? A way that people can have access through wherever the contributions come from. I don't know about investors. My position is, and I may be very wrong, is that if you ask investors to put into healthcare, right, the majority of we have 40% of our population who are poor. They probably don't have money to invest, and then a lot of people who are just not employed to any entity, so they're not accounted for. The same people who don't pay taxes, right, are not going to be paying into the health insurance system, right? So, but often these are the people who most need the system. So we need to figure out how funding a sustainable and valuable, okay, one that everybody can have access to without much shaking around, right? How funding that is going to come about. Now, that's a big question. Like I tell you, the people who probably most need to use the system don't have it. That doesn't make them any less what's the word I want to use? It doesn't make them any less
in other words,
needy.
It doesn't make them ineligible to get the care.
Eligible, right. They have a right as a citizen to have good health care. We need to try and understand. The government has a responsibility to make sure they can deliver, but we need to understand that this is not an easy task, especially when it comes to sustainability. I have concerns about investors. This is me speaking from me about people investing, because people who invest want money back.
Yeah, of course.
Are we going to cut corners? Are we going to cut corners on the delivery, the quality of care? Right? Are we going to give a basic package that may not be comprehensive enough? Are we going to cut cost delivery at secondary care and tertiary care? Or are we going to be able to invest into secondary and tertiary care? Tertiary care is highly specialized care, okay? How are we going to do this? And this is something that is still, I think, up for debate, right? And must be. I don't know that anybody has the perfect system. I looked at the Americans that because they tried to get rid of the Affordable Care Act or Obamacare, people are now paying 3 and 4 times the premium. They can't afford it because if you have to pay 3 and 4 times the premium for insurance, they go buy food or they go pay rent, okay? And already premiums are high. And these are people who work and could, and can pay into the system. And then they have other systems, other safety nets. But we have to have 3 things: a good system that delivers more than just basic care. We have to ensure that the primary care system is working so we can keep people basically well, right? All the preventative measures can be in there. And we have to find a way to fund it that doesn't cripple us and halfway through care is not available. That's my situation. But do we need a health insurance? Yes, we do.
Yeah. I just want to add, Doc, because you're so correct. This is not just something that can just happen just like that, because there are a lot of other factors that must be considered, and so care must be taken to ensure that whatever is done, it is sustainable and people can benefit in some way or the other, because you also have to consider other things that can impact the system. We are living in a time where hurricanes are more intense. We have droughts, all of these things. In one night, a hurricane can destroy our entire healthcare system.
Look at Jamaica.
Exactly. Health insurance in a case like that really can't help you. So we have to consider a lot of things, and I think inside of that too. And earlier we mentioned whether or not the message is reaching people. A very important role there is how much we can do for ourselves to prevent ourselves from getting ill, so that we do not fall victim to one a system that cannot provide for us what we would need, and also in case of emergencies where you have natural disasters, we're not in a situation where we cannot be helped. So there's a lot.
So
there's a lot to consider.
Right. So I'm glad you brought that up, because we often think that health and wellness is solely the responsibility of the Ministry of Health. But there's a thing called health and all policies. So the Ministry of, I hope Alvin is listening tonight, because we discuss that every time I see him. The Ministry of Sports, for example, should not only be directed, its activities must not only be directed to people who would be professionals, sporting professionals, but how do sports influence, whatever physical exercise, influence the wellness of our population? It must be written into the Ministry of Sports policy. We have community centers, we have playgrounds, we have all this. How do we ensure that our people, our children, have way to run up and down, have way to exercise? The Ministry of Infrastructure, are roads safe for people to go out and walk? The Ministry of National Security, is everybody going to do like when they drive on Tantine Road? Is it going to become the tarmac at Point Celine? All of those things. Ministry of Agriculture must ensure that the food that we produce, the food that we produce be sufficient and of good quality. And they must encourage. How do we encourage families to plant food, to have something, because it is expensive to buy stuff in the market? The Ministry of Trade, are they going to allow all the crap that comes in, right? Well, they can, but they must also know, do we have to tax them higher? How do we dissuade people from this? How do we increase taxation on tobacco and alcohol to deter people from engaging in consumption of alcohol and sugar and all the things that can be not good, can be bad, right, for a population. So it's not just the Ministry of Health, but we have to consider whatever we're doing, right? How do we develop our policies that will ensure that the Grenadian population stays well? And the other parties. Oh yeah. Okay.
Lots and lots.
Right. The other parties. Everybody has a responsibility, and you can't. I was listening to the guys from Transit. Don't remember the agencies, and they were talking about everything except people. Guess what? You don't need to have roads if people are not going anywhere. You don't need to have safe vehicles if people are not going anywhere. So whatever you take, you have to put a human component and the well-being of the human being into it, right? It doesn't matter whether you're driving a BMW. If you drive it and you're drunk, you're going to kill somebody on the road, right? If the road is not good, you can get in the accident, you can die. So we have to always, in everything to do, how can we keep our humans well, safe, and ensure that people could get to the end of their lives?
Yes, indeed. So, Doc, I want we'll take a short break. When we come back, we'll move to the other part of our discussion this evening, which speaks to the importance of, following instructions, when we visit our physicians to ensure that we get the best care possible. So stay with us, folks. We take a short break and we will be right back.
AIDS, cancer,
Grenada, are you ready for the biggest football showdown to kick off 2026? Our senior men's national team is back and they're going for 7 straight wins. Sunday, January 18th, Team Grenada takes on regional rivals Jamaica in a clash of titans at the Karani James Athletic Stadium. Kickoff 5 p.m. sharp. It's pride, power, and pure Caribbean football. Grenada versus Jamaica, a rivalry like no other. Can we make it 7 in a row? Come feel the energy, the passion, the fight. Tickets just $25 for adults, $10 for children. Kids under 10 enter free. Grab yours now at Heather's Boutique, Chucky's Bar, Grenadian Optical, or GFA's office. Tell your friends, bring the family, and let's pack the stadium. This is more than a match. This is Grenada versus Jamaica, and we want all of you to be in the stands. Sunday, January 18th at 5 p.m. Grenada versus Jamaica. One team, one goal.
Sunrise Diagnostic Center is the place to visit for your medical laboratory test, ultrasound, X-ray, mammogram, ECG, and ultrasound guided and bone density test. Also available are COVID PCR and antigen tests. Most results are available within 24 hours. Sunrise Diagnostic Center is located at number 9 NS Building, Melville Street, St. George's, with sub-offices in Grand Anse, Wall Street, and Grenville, St. Andrew. Visit Sunrise Diagnostic Center today at any of their offices or call 440-3709 or cell phone 415-9522.
Are you looking for a reliable, affordable, and customer-friendly pharmacy? Look no further than Hills and Valley Pharmacy, the nation's leading healthcare products and services provider. We are committed to serving you at convenient locations. Find an extensive and affordable selection of prescription and over-the-counter drugs and medical supplies at Church Street, Hillsborough, Carriacou, Jubilee Street, Grenville, St. Andrew, near the bus terminal, and Halifax and Grenville Street, St. George. Our committed team is always available to offer valuable assistance for managing your health and wellness. Discover the additional benefits of our wholesale distribution on Halifax Street and our Medcare Center on Grenville Street, where we provide in-house physiotherapy, massage therapy, doctor consultations, and eye care services. Our commitment is to satisfy all your healthcare needs, including competitive prices, loyalty rewards, and special discounts for seniors. Contact us at 435-6904 and WhatsApp 535-4734. Choose Hills and Valley Pharmacy. Remember, your health is our business.
Asian Spa and Wellness Cafe, nestled in the serene surroundings of Le Phare Bleu, Calivini Bay, St. George, is the perfect spot to unwind and relax after a stressful event or when you wish to spoil yourself in the most comfortable and relaxing atmosphere. They offer many different massage modalities, including thigh hammer, washer and cupping, signature thigh deep tissue massage, also facials to depuff and tighten pores, deep cleanse full body, hair and nail treatments and more. Take a walk down to the cafe for authentic Thai breakfasts and delicious traditional dishes. Choose from our special mixed drinks, both hot and cold. Opens daily. Visit Asian Spa and Wellness Cafe today, Le Phare Bleu, Calivini Bay, St. George, because you will not regret you did.
Drug abuse, cancer,
measles.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Dr. Nicole. If you're just joining us, we're really happy to have you. And of course, you can also be part of the conversation, through our telephone line. The number is 435-2041, or you can send us a WhatsApp, same number, 435-2041, if you have any questions or you'd like to, be part of the program, by way of contribution. So be sure, to be part of that. Doc, we want to move now to the whole, discussion of, working with your patient and the patient working with their physician to ensure that the best results are achieved. Usually when someone feels unwell and they visit the doctor, they expect the doctor to fix it, because that's what the doctor does. He has to fix it, make them well again, and ensure that they're back on their feet. And that's where it starts and stops for a patient that is not well. So a patient comes to you, and you talk to the patient, you get the information, and then of course the doctor is human as well. So the doctor may need additional information to make sure that, I know what that patient needs of me, so I need to ensure that I have everything I need to provide them with that. And of course, sometimes the patient is asked to go get a urine test, or a stool test, or a HbA1c, or a scan, or whatever it is. And these things, they cost money. And we did mention earlier that in other cases, sometimes people don't have it, and so. But, and doctors understand that. So let's talk about the importance of that, because sometimes, patients are given their paper to take to probably the lab or wherever to get these things done, and sometimes for more than one reason the doctor doesn't see them again. Why is it important for these things to happen? Let's talk about that.
Can you hear me?
Yes, very well.
So before we get to the nitty-gritty of that, okay? Our clinicians, our physicians, and our nurses, people who do direct care, have a responsibility to maneuver, to have a lot of knowledge, which you go acquiring as you go. So you can't be out of medical school 10 years and not show how they do that. You can't be using the same medication you're using 15 years ago. Trust me. How I manage diabetes when I came out of medical school is totally different. The whole concept of diabetes is different. And hypertension, and the medications and stuff, right? Now, the first thing is that we have to make sure that we are prepared, that we have the proper instruction, right, to give care to a patient. It also means that you can't take on patients that you don't know how. So I will not attempt to do surgery in my office. There are things I can do as a surgeon, basic surgical techniques. But we're not doing it. That's not my, my dexterity is not there. That's why we have other people with a higher level of knowledge in a specialized way. So we kind of need to identify what can I manage and what can I not manage. Or what is this to start with? What is it I think I am seeing? And I think that are easy. Somebody have diabetes, you know what it is, but you have to consider a lot of other stuff, right? Somebody have high blood pressure, or a child with asthma, or somebody has eczema, those things, right? However, there are a myriad, a plethora, a book full of diseases that require that you have a little more knowledge or some more information. And the truth is, sometimes we need to send our patients to do tests that will substantiate what our thinking is, right? And those tests we send you to the lab and to the x-ray and to other things. Now, what we have to decide is the benefits and the costs, right? It might cost the patient a lot, but does it benefit the patient as per his health and well-being, as per his, getting him well again, all right? So basic tests, what do? We do bloods. We do a full blood count. And if you're a little worried, some people need to have a sickle cell test, which is very important, because the Sickle Cell Association does screening when they go to health fairs. But with 1 in 15 persons in our community carrying the sickle cell gene, it is important that we screen as much of our population as possible so they know what their status is. Okay? I'm just speaking about sickle cell here. Mm-hmm. But if we do a full blood count, does the person have anemia or not? Is there any source of infection? Is the blood weak? Why is it weak? Right? What's going on? Okay? We need to check a patient's glucose. That's a lab test. You can do it. We have ability to do it at the point of care, where you see the doctor in his office. A doctor can check your blood sugar immediately. Some of us do it at home, right? Some patients are able to monitor their blood sugars at home. And that, for me, is one of the biggest things that patients can do, be able to monitor their blood pressure and their sugar at home. And there are other things that they probably can as well. And doing an A1C, which gives us an idea as to how your control has been over the last 3 months. Okay? Not for people with sickle cell, because those cells, the red blood cells for sickle cell people doesn't live as long as the regular population. And then, of course, looking at your kidneys, how they function, your thyroid, how they function, and your liver, right? Those are some, right? You know, we also want to, depends on who the patient is, we want to do their cancer markers. Those are chemicals that we find in your blood, right? We want to see how high they are for breast, prostate, uterus, and large bowel and ovaries. There are different cancer markers. So depending on the patient's age, depending on the person's gender, right? You send them to do these tests. And it does not have suspicion. There's a time you can do it, right? So those are the cancer markers. I think because our population has so much cancer, everybody should be screening. Okay, so a pap smear for cervical cancer, breast cancer, together with that, and doing like a mammogram or ultrasound to make sure there are no changes. If the person has the factors, or at least having a baseline, right? Prostate cancer screening in our men, right? At 40, maybe younger at the rate we're going these days. Large bowel cancer screening at least at 50, right? Ovarian, doesn't happen a lot, but it happens, all right? And then of course, you can always scope, like, you know, like you're scoping, you're looking into the hollow organs. So you can look at the stomach, and you can look at the large bowel through either a gastroscopy or a colonoscopy, which are what we call endoscopy, looking inside, right? And then of course, there's also things like the radiodiagnostic, the things that do through radiology, and ultrasound. And ultrasound looks at solid tissue mostly, right? So when you do an ultrasound in pregnancy, you're really looking at the baby and if there's any other solid masses around. You can look at the liver, you look at the kidneys, those solid organs. Ultrasound is not really very good for hollow organs like bowel and lungs and stuff, okay? Unless you have some mass that is very well defined. And of course, there's just regular X-ray, getting a chest X-ray or X-ray of your back, your spine, your hip, your abdomen if you have obstruction, right? Those are tests that are required. And X-ray you may do with or without a contrast. All right. So they put a dye into your vein, and they X-ray the part, knowing that the blood that dye is going to pass over that organ within a certain time, and they're able to do it. They also check the bladder by just injecting it into the bladder with a catheter to see there's any changes. And of course, we have the CAT scan, which is is also radiodiagnostic, putting in radiation to look for a thing, and an MRI, which is a function at a much higher level, and there are other things like PET scans and stuff which we don't have here. So the truth is, all these tests helps your doctor to figure out what is going on, so you can get to an appropriate diagnosis. Okay, and of course, just testing your urine.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right? Because what we're doing when we test in urine and stool, right? And if somebody's coughing, it could check sputum, could identify bacteria that might be there. You can identify the person have TB, God forbid. You can check the urine, is there blood, is there pus, is there whatever is there. Stool, do we have parasites? Do we have eggs on parasites? Do we have, is there any blood that we can't see in real life in the stools? So there are a lot of things that can help you to come to a conclusion. No. Patients may feel that you're just writing it up, and we really shouldn't do that. You shouldn't really send a patient for a test that's unnecessary. All right? So that is why you have to know what you're dealing with and what you want to get from the tests. And some of us don't do enough testing of our patients. So, for example, patients with diabetes should have the A1Cs done on a regular basis. If they have sickle cell, there's a fructosamine test that they can do, right? But we need to have that information. And so our responsibility as caregivers is to stay up to date with all the continuing education that's available. Right? We need to keep abreast of the knowledge and the investigations and the diagnoses and the easier way to make a diagnosis. The patient has to understand, and I want our population to understand that when you go to your doctor, you guys form a team. Your doctor might have to refer you to the urologist, for example, right, or to the gastroenterologist, person who deals with disease of the bowels, right, of the digestive tract. But you must know, and the doctor needs to explain to you what is going on. Ask questions, because what I find people come mute to the doctor, expect the worst. Don't ever expect the worst. Don't expect the worst. Sometimes bad things happen, but you must come with an air of positivity that I'm coming to see what's happening so I can be well. If you go to your doctor earlier for your screens, the longer you're likely to live. Because remember, especially in cases like cancers, we talk about early diagnosis saving lives. Okay? You want to be, if you are going to have a cancer, you may have it. All right? But stage 1 and 2 cancer and stage 2 cancers, people have a relatively high possibility of surviving. If you wait and you end up getting diagnosed at stage 4 or stage 3, there's always a possibility of more premature death, right? Or suffering. Might have to have surgery, might be very difficult to recuperate and all the rest of it. So that is why primary care, again, is the place you need to be seeking care. And not just you and your children. Primary care is where you make sure you have your vaccines. They're free of cost, believe it or not. And I know people talk about, vaccine XYZ. Let me tell you something. If it weren't for vaccine, a lot of us won't be here. Okay? If it weren't for vaccines, a lot of us wouldn't be here because we'd have died under the age of 5 because of vaccine preventable, because we were not inoculated. We didn't get vaccines that prevent certain diseases, like infectious diseases, like measles, like mumps, like German measles, like polio, which is still ongoing. And there are countries that still have those challenges because they have not adopted completely the whole thing, the whole program of extended program of immunization, right? Or populations that have their religious belief. Look, we can talk about vaccines for a week, okay? And we will talk about vaccines eventually. I can promise you, as long as I'm around. Because it is very important. There's been a lot of tendency to not accept vaccines. And let me explain to you what this is my postulation in relation to the whole anti-vax movement. There's a phenomenon called herd immunity. So if you have 100 cows out in the pasture, and 5 of them are white, okay? The 5 white cows are the ones that are not immunized, okay? Cowpox comes around, the 90 cows are immunized, right? The chances of one of the 5 getting cowpox is very less, is much less, right? Because there's so many others that are around. So if cowpox, I'm just saying, if cowpox comes and it's more likely to come in contact with one of those cows, one of those dark cows that have received the vaccine, and the vaccine makes them immune. In other words, they can't get sick, right? After having come in contact with the cowpox. In the same way, if you have 100 children and 5 of them are not immunized, a child comes in with measles, okay? The possibility of one of the 5 children getting the measles virus is much less than the other 95 children, all right? So that's herd immunity. The herd kind of covers. And sometimes just by having the vaccine and the friction the kids come in contact with each other, they get immunity because, it's transferred. If you decide that you're not going to vaccinate your children, none of us is going to vaccinate our children, right? One child comes in there and she has measles and she sneezes, and you have a large population of children who are not vaccinated, it is quite likely that a lot of kids will get measles from her because there's no herd immunity provided. Okay? That is what is going to happen to us if we behave like, no, I'm not going to get this. I'm not giving my child vaccine. When we know that we are here, those of us who refuse to take the vaccine, we refuse to allow our children and our grandchildren, we know that were it not for vaccines, we may not have reached adult life.
Very interesting. So, Doc, I just want to go back to the test again, and so you talk to the patient, and then you give the patient this sheet of paper, with lots of fancy terms that the patient has never seen before. They don't understand. They don't know, and you tick off all of them. Tick, 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 and maybe down the road, one of them blank. The box is unchecked. But and you say to the patient, look, I need to go get some blood work done. The patient looks a little confused. I mean, but there's all this thing I had to check back like a walking dead. And I'm saying this because there are people, they have this fear of death and doctors and all of these different things that has to be done and so on and so forth. It makes them feel like they're really sick. But should the physician sort of maybe take a little time, and maybe the patient too, ask the physician, Doc, what are all these things that you checked? What's they for? What about that?
So I think I can tell you how I do it. Okay, when I'm saying to my patient, I'm going to give you some tests because I think this is what's going on, but I have to make sure, right? Or if I'm not sure, look, I'm not so sure what's going on here. Let's do some tests and figure out what's going on. Okay? And I go through the list with them. This is for that. That is for that. This is for that. Look, this is going to cost you a little money, but I know. All right? I know it's going to cost. I know the tests are expensive. I know they cost you. I do lab tests, and I'm like, oh my God, right? But if you explain to patients, they make the effort. Okay? But they have to be, that's informed consent. You have to tell the patient, that's part of practicing medicine. You don't just say, go and do this. That's not all. Take this medication. You have to explain to them what you're doing, right? And they say, okay, let me do this. Don't just put it on them because you really want to have a partnership, right? We really should establish partnerships with our patients. And I tell my patients, you're the chief partner here. I'm working with a collective of people, the lab, the doctor I'm going to refer you to, blah, blah, blah. Okay, the pharmacist. All of us work together, but you're the center of this. And we have to empower patients to understand them, one, to understand the importance of their wellness, two, and to understand where they are in their illness, if there is an illness, and how we can all work together to make this better. If you don't do this, you're taking over the patient's power, and your caring is not patient-centered. It must be patient-centered. Patient can say they don't want to do it, and that's their right. Okay, because the practice of medicine must be patient-centered. Patient can say, I don't want to do this. I don't, and you explain to them, look, you're the person who run this. Okay, let's try and do this so you can do some by some by some by some. All right, but I'd really like to see so we can come to an agreement and take care of you. Right? Because there's some things you can't diagnose unless you have an exam, a blood test. I can imagine you have diabetes because I see some, but if I don't get a blood test, right, on A1C to figure out exactly where you are, I can imagine that your kidneys are not functioning well, but unless I can get kidney function tests, and patients understand if you explain to them. Sometimes you have to do it 2 and 3 times. Call and say, Miss Jane, what's going on? I'm looking for results, right? And one of the things that has to be made available is that access to those additional tests that patients require in order to have a diagnosis. And at the same time, you don't just do it willy-nilly. It must be something that the patient requires, right? It must be something that is required by the patient. So you don't just say, let me just tick off everything.
Right.
Okay?
So, Doc, I want us to get a little hands on here, and let me put you on the spot a little bit. And some of them I'm familiar with, a lot of the names, and of course, being on the program with you all these years, I've learned quite a bit, so I'm familiar with some of the names. But you see things like, for example, HbA1c, you see hemoglobin, you see creatinine, you see all of these things, uric acid, let's just maybe pick maybe 3 or 4 examples, and let's just talk a little bit.
Most important one.
Yeah, a little bit about it, so that maybe people listening can get an idea.
Okay, the one that your doctor will always send you to do is a CBC,
right.
Complete blood count.
Complete blood count, right?
Right. Or sometimes some people call it FBC. But CBC is what is currently most utilized.
Right.
Your blood, in relation to its components, I'm not talking about the chemicals in the blood, I'm talking about just the structure of the blood, has fluid called plasma, and it has red cells, white cells, and fragments of cells called platelets. The platelets' function is to enhance coagulation. So when you get cut, or you're in an accident, all these they get activated and they come and they try and form a clot
to prevent bleeding. Yeah,
you should not clot while your blood is running in your veins. If that happens, we have a problem. Okay. The CBC would look for your red blood cells and your white blood cells. Your red blood cells is just one, it's just a big group, or it's also called red corpuscles, or not reticulocytes. There's another name. I'm sorry. It just slips me, right? Your red blood cells. So, red blood cells carry hemoglobin and some of the food, right? So, if your red blood cell count is low, you say you have anemia. Okay? But you can also have red blood cell count that's very high when you have polycythemia. You don't really want to have that because it means they could clump together. They can, clump up together, right? And then you have a red blood cell looks like a plate, like a sphere, right? And it doesn't have a nucleus, which is important, but it has like a pizza. When you make a pizza and you have like a bumper on the edge, it kind of looks like that. It carries oxygen. Okay. Red blood cells carry oxygen. By a compound called hemoglobin. That's what makes it red, anyway, right? The white blood cells, or the white corpuscles, also called leukocytes, okay, are the defense mechanism. So I tell people, think about who's our defense? The police, right? Right? So, but you have traffic police, you have in CIB, you have SSU, you have what are the guys on the wall? The guys who do the boats. Tell me.
The Navy, the SEALs, Navy SEAls on the boats.
No, we don't have no Navy SEAls.
You're talking about here in Grenada? Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean, right?
Coast Guard,
right? So they're all there, and they have their things, okay? And they kind of change depending on what the needs are. So if you come and you have a viral infection, we know that one set of the lymphocytes, which is white cells, right? One set the lymphocytes get high when you have a viral infection. So if I see a lot of them high, then I know it's probably a virus. You understand? if I see the neutrophils, which is another one of the other white blood cells, if that's high, I know, there's probably a bacteria or something. And so we know, if you see the eosinophils high, there's probably a parasitic infection or somebody who has allergies. And it goes on and on, right? Because what happens, if we are being attacked by land, you'd find that we call on the Coast Guard, right, and tell them, come put on your green uniform, let's go and fight, right? If we're having challenge, the guys who do the beat, who do traffic, become Coast Guard. Do you understand what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Depends on what you need. So you have a finite amount, and people change, and they change around depending on what the needs are. And that's what you have to sit and explain to your patients, right? When you get your test back, why this is that. All right? That's a CBC, and of course the platelets will tell us if they're very low, we cannot get very concerned. If it's too high, you're also very concerned. All right? Everything has a range. So when you look at your blood test, it says, for example, hemoglobin. They will also say how much hemoglobin you have, right? And there's a limit. 12 to 15 for female, 13 to 17 for males, right? Under that, you have anemia. Your blood count is low. If it's above that, you worry about will they have polycythemia. My patient might be dehydrated, so the amount you find in a concentration of the blood is high. But that will show in other places, so you cannot understand. But there's a range. So people will see that the range, they'll tell you what your test is, and then you have to look and see what the range is. Okay? If you're outside of the range, then you look and see what is going on. You try to evaluate why the person out of the range, right? And it might just confirm what your suspicions are. The other thing we do, so CBC, and then we do a fasting blood sugar or a random blood sugar. And I want to do 2 tests with sugar. There's a limit as to where your sugar should be, right? Mm-hmm. And the limit is 70 to 100 milligrams per DL, okay? 70 to 100. There are other measures, right, that we use, which is millimoles per liter. That goes like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and that's it. But so it's like buying a kilogram of sugar or buying a pound of sugar. It's the same sugar, but right, just different measurement, units used, right? So your sugar should be between 70 and 100. If you eat like 5 minutes ago, you have a drink and you have a plate of oil down, or you have some, a plate of pilla, whatever it is, the things that would make your sugar go up, I would expect your sugar. The rule is that within 2 hours of having had a meal, if your system that controls your blood sugar management is working well, you should go back to normal after 2 hours.
Okay.
That is if you sit down, like you eat lunch and you're watching TV and you go back to office and you work. You can't be running after the dog and go and feed the pig, and you understand what I'm trying to tell you? You can't be sweeping the yard. And in normal basal conditions, when you're not working, how does that happen? What happens, right? That's what your A1C is an average of your sugars, those 2 hour sugars. Your A1C gives you an average because the surplus sugar in your blood tends to stick onto those red blood cells. So it's called an HB, right? Which is hemoglobin. Mm-hmm. A1C, that's a test, right? If you have a surplus of sugar in your blood after those 2 hours, it will stick onto the red cells, right? Red cells have a certain lifespan, and we say 3 months, 90 to 120 days, right? If I check your A1C and it's within normal limits now, and then when I check it in 3 months' time, it's out of limit, I know you have not been doing well in controlling your sugar, because you have that surplus of sugar that remains after those 2 hours that coats these red blood cells, right? And the red blood cells you had today are going to be dead in 4 months' time, certainly, right? So if I take it within 3 months and I see it's elevated, I know that, A, these cells that are alive today have been bombarded by blood glucose. And that's one of those things that we don't understand when A1C is high, is that it causes the cells tend to clog together, right? And that makes us to have most of the complications that we have. Poor circulation to our feet, poor circulation to our kidneys, poor circulation, because these clumps of red blood cells actually clog up the whole of the arterial system, the system that through which the blood gets its sugar, because you need sugar for energy, okay? And through which it gets its nutrition and stuff, right? And of course, hemoglobin for oxygen in the tissue. So HbA1c is a very important test that should be done every 3 months. What other tests? I want cholesterol. Okay? Cholesterol, you ask for a lipid profile, so it gives you total cholesterol, it gives you your good cholesterol, your bad cholesterol, your triglycerides, and the ratio between them, right? That's also very important because our cholesterol gives us an idea as to how our body is metabolizing the fats that we consume. Are we consuming bad fats or not? Do we have it under control? Is it that bad that if I have diabetes and hypertension and my cholesterol is very high, I may need to be put on an anti-cholesterol drug? Or at least I have to modify my diet because it tells you how much fat you consume in your diet. Animal fat, animal fat, animal fat, animal fat, animal fat. Okay? So those are some of the tests you do. And guess what? When you do a test, ask your doctor. I'm telling patients, ask your doctor to explain to you. Right? And if you do it regularly, you'll have a good idea. Because if I have a patient whose cholesterol is high now, in probably 6 weeks or more, and I give them dietary modifications, which is where I start, right? I want to see what's going on. If it's coming down, it's coming down. If it's very, very high, you might need some medication support, right? But lifestyle, talking to the patient as what to do. Exercise is excellent for bringing down your cholesterol, right? So, and you have to, when you're doing your total cholesterol, you have to be fasting. So that's one of the things. We tell people fasting. Fasting means if you're going to the lab tomorrow morning to do your test, and it's a fasting test, right? You have to have something late in the night, like around now, 10 o'clock, right? Have 2 crackers, a cup of milk. You understand? Have something light in the night, and then you get up and go to the lab early, because after 8 hours, your body's going to start, after 10 hours, your body's going to start to break down from the stores that you've had. And so the test that you get in the morning, if you eat from 6 o'clock in the evening, is not right, because your body will already start breaking down because your body thinks that you're starving. All right? So those are just some of the tests.
Right. What about, let's say, the kidney functions? Because it's a common thing, people, we spoke about dialysis earlier and how expensive it can be. How do you, what tests do you do to determine whether someone's kidney is going bad?
So there are what we call renal. Renal refers to kidney, right? Kidney function tests, or renal function tests, which looks at your creatinine and urea especially. It also takes into consideration it measures the sodium and the potassium. Those are electrolytes, chemicals that exist in your body that keeps your muscles balanced, keeps your the absorption at your kidney level or reabsorption. That balances those very intricate functions, right? You need to have some potassium, you need to have some sodium, you need to have some chloride, because that keeps your heart pumping, that keeps your blood vessels working, okay? That makes you feel strong or not, your muscles, right? You know what's getting a Charlie horse. You go and exercise and your legs start cramping. It happens to a lot of people. That's because your sodium gets low. You drink a little bit of salty water and that pain goes away. So we do need some. And of course, again, I said, when you look at the test results, there's a limit. Okay? There's a range, X to Y, right? Because those are things that are necessary. Things that have to be zero is things like triglycerides, which comes on the lipid functions, right? The fats. You're not supposed to have any triglycerides in your blood, right? In food, there is a limit of triglycerides. But what I'm saying is that there are limits. So they check your potassium, your chloride, your your sodium, and those are things that all come in your diet, right? That's when we say don't eat too much salty food, right? And we know that if you have kidney problems, you're not supposed to consume a lot of salt, because that's going to really hamper whatever's left of your renal functions. And then, of course, you have urea and creatinine, which are two of the compounds that your kidney manages, right? And if they're out of whack, then you think you're said to be in kidney failure.
Right. So there is also something with the kidney called the bun. Apart from the creatinine.
Blood urea nitrogen. Yeah, that's one. Blood urea nitrogen. That's a compound that comes from the breakdown of proteins, right? So, but that's the same urea.
Right.
Urea and creatinine. Right. Yeah.
So when the test comes back, what does the doctor look for in terms of how do you determine whether let's say for example the creatinine content is high or low or whatever it is, to make that determination?
They tell you what the results are, and you compare it to the all your results will tell you what are the normal ranges.
Right. Okay.
Right. So if your creatinine goes over 1.2, 1.3, already, you start looking at what's going on here. Right. And then you can refer the patient to the nephrologist, to the kidney specialist, or sometimes it's just a matter of readjusting patient's medication and looking at them for a little while and then getting it back down. But sometimes the patient you acquire already have challenges because they have not been managed properly. And that's why primary care has to be so very strict and rigid in its management of patients, right? Because it can happen there, right? Doing regular tests. You go back to your primary care physician, oh, everything is going well. I mean, I've known of patients who've been going to the health centers, and these are patients who go. If you say, Mr. Joe, I want to see you tomorrow morning at 5:20, make sure you wear your khaki shirt and your light blue shirt. That's how he turns up. And then 13, 12 years later, he's never had an A1C, he's never had his creatinine done. Everything is out of whack. He's in renal failure, end-stage renal failure.
Right.
You understand? So it is important that we follow patients and explain to patients. And coming along with that is patients' medications, especially in the case of kidney functions. Hypertension and diabetes. You can have hypertension and don't have diabetes. But if you have diabetes, it is likely that you'll have hypertension accompanying. Psyche and Trim, Bonnie and Clyde, okay? And so you have to explain to patients the importance of being responsible for themselves. There's a nutritionist that can go and get nutrition counseling. But sometimes by the time you see the patient, you really need to send them to the specialty clinic. You need to send to the specialty clinic. But patients have to take their medications in order to be able to control whatever disease they have. You'll hear myriad things out there, okay? The science has proven that patients who take their medications usually do well. But it's also important to diagnose early. You don't want me to diagnose your diabetes when you've had diabetes for 12, 13 years, because a lot of damage is done just by the presence of high blood sugar. Right? And patients say, I have met a patient that says, about 10 years ago, a doctor telling me sugar was high, but never did anything about it.
Right.
And that's why I say we as caregivers have to make sure that we give patients the guidance that they need. We must understand what the complications of diseases can be, right? How do we avoid them? It is very important that we give patients a chance to live.
Right.
And a chance to live well. And apart from just giving medications, we also have to counsel people on lifestyle, education, on exercise, and avoiding consuming alcohol. Like our diabetics should not even be watching a rum bottle, much less drinking alcohol, right? Christmas just went. I'm not telling people don't have a little piece of cake, but you don't have to eat the whole cake. Lord, this cake tastes nice, sweet. Yes, it tastes nice, but what's sweet in golden mouth? We know what happens elsewhere. All right? You have to understand how to exchange your diet. So, like, if it's your grandchild's birthday, yes, you want to have a little piece of cake. You simply cannot have the whole cake. You have a sliver, and in your next meal, you take away the starch.
Right.
right? And patients, I would want people to be inquisitive. You know my favorite thing, use your phone. I want people to be inquisitive about their health status, okay? Try to figure out what's going on with me. Be information seeking. The internet is there, and now you get AI information that comes up more. Sometimes the information is wrong on AI, I can tell you that much. But the point is, if you go into Google and put it in, you would get something to explain whatever it is. Right? And one of the things I'm going to ask patients, and I ask them all the time, when you go into your doctor, walk with your questions. There's no question that's too stupid. If it sounds stupid, it's because you really don't have a grasp of the concept. I like when my patients ask me questions. When you ask me a question that you don't understand, and I have a responsibility to clarify this. You must leave a little more instructed than when you came into the office, right? Because when you go out, I want you to be responsible for yourself. I want you to be empowered to take care of yourself. I want you to be empowered to be able to share information with your peers in your family, right? And sometimes one person is not as academically instructed as the other. So come with your spouse. Whoever can read and write and who cooks the meals and stuff should follow the other person to the doctor. And in all of this, I want to before we go, I want to remember that our children. Last year we had a lot of upheaval when we tried to do the when we spoke about the adolescent health policy, right? And changing the age at which they can seek care without parents. The bottom line is that we have to teach our children as well to live healthy lifestyles. We don't have to give our children things that we think should be gifts they had because we never had it. It's bad for them. Our children also, our family also have to eat well in our house. There's no need for the diabetic person to have a different pot from the rest of the family. If everybody were eating healthily, everybody can share the same meal, okay? Everybody can share from the pot because the lifestyle that a family adopts should be good for everybody across the board. Okay? Right. You don't have to eat bland food because you're sick. Remember that your children need to have their vaccines. Remember that we need to take our children once a year even. Once a year, you should be taking your child for a well-child thing. We have to look for things like parasites and anemia in the kids and skin infections and stuff, right? Once a year, take your child to the health center for a checkup. Check his weight. We have problems with childhood obesity. Yeah, we like our children chubby. Chubby is not good. Okay? See whether your child, their charts that tell you whether your child is overweight or obese for the age and gender and height, right? The charts are ready. All you have to do is weigh the child, see what the BMI is and fix it out. And check it out, compare it to the charts. Our children are very important, and our children must learn that it is important to be seen by physicians. We need to teach them new practices, okay? We need to teach them new practices. So your child, and of course the dentist. I keep forgetting, everybody should be visiting the dentist. It is very important to have good oral health and good mental health, okay? Because that's what makes it comprehensive, okay? Oral health, in the case of our children, once your child has his first 2 eruptions, your child should be seeing the dentist. So that when he's 5 and he have rotten teeth already, you're not afraid of the dentist. Okay? And if you teach your child early to visit the dentist and the dentist can give you counsel, right? Then your child is very unlikely to develop dental caries, to have rotten teeth. Okay? And rotten teeth is also a source of bacteria into the child's blood, and it's also a reason why we don't eat well, because it hurts. Okay? It hurts.
Doc, we almost out of time, but I just want to ask you one final question quickly. Shouldn't take very long here. Some of the tests that we mentioned, or a general test, to make sure that your patient is fine. And we know that it's recommended that you should at least probably visit your doctor to do a complete medical check maybe once a year. Does the test, or is the test a requirement at least once a year, or maybe twice?
No, your test. If you do a baseline, right? And you're fine, the doctor will tell you, do this in another year. But if you do a baseline and I see your A1C should be up to 6.2, 6 I like, okay? If I see your A1C is 6.5, I need to see you in 3 months.
Okay.
I need to see you in 3 months. I want you to, let's talk about modifying the way you eat, right? Because it means that you're already having elevated blood sugars, right? One of the other things you need to do is like see a podiatrist when you become diabetic. And we can talk about that when you get to diabetes. Because there are other things you can encourage a person to do, right? And the person already realized that, boy, I'm probably diabetic. And if they don't know, we need to tell them, look, this is where you're running. These are the things that you need to do. These are the things that we'll do together. Send them to the nutritionist, already start changing. So hopefully in the next 3 months, we can get that A1C back down to under 6 or 6. Do you understand me? But you have to identify the risk that your patients face. You have to identify the risk. You do blood tests. You're not doing blood tests because you feel the patient have money to think. You want to say, oh, yeah, this looks okay. All right? Even doing prostate tests. I do digital exam because I like to feel what your prostate feels like, because it doesn't necessarily mean that what I'm going to get in the blood is commensurate with what you have clinically. Right. Okay? So if I see a PSA that's over 4, certainly you have to repeat it, right? Especially if I find that you have abnormality in my digit, I will send you on to the urologist. Nephrologist does just kidney. Urologist does reproductive organs, right? I would send to the urologist, especially in men. Men at 40, please go get your PSA done. Please go get checked. Please, I beg you, because we have black men, right, have a high risk of prostate cancer. And prostate cancer is a slow-growing cancer, but by the time you come when you're 60, I think it's just top of your water you already have a cancer that's big, right, and causing other challenges, and probably already spread to other organs, and it's impossible to save you, right? It's a simple test. The earlier you get it, the better for you, and you can have early prostate cancer. You can have prostate cancer diagnosed early, and you live.
Right. Lovely. And
you live a normal life. You get your checks every year or every 6 months until you can get to every year, and you're fine. So there's no need to be scared, because I think, and I understand the fear factor. Okay, I understand the fear factor. Find a doctor you can talk to. Find somebody who's compassionate. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Go out there and try to live a little longer. This is 2016. We have a lot of technology available, right? There's a lot of knowledge. Seek knowledge on your own. For people who want to look for information on cancer, there's a Caribbean Cancer Portal that has information, education, so you can read how you screen yourself, all those things, right? Don't be afraid. Go on to the Caribbean Cancer Portal, which actually originates here at SGU and is available for the people in the Caribbean to be able to screen, understand cancers and where you seek health care from and all the rest of it.
Right, lovely. Well, Doc, we're out of time. This is, was such an interesting conversation. And as we go through, I would like us to, continue, reminding people about the importance of tests and maybe, from time to time, mention a couple of them, because they do pop up, from time to time, so that our listeners and viewers can, have a better understanding of the importance of getting the test done when they're instructed to by the physician. So we that's all the time we have, folks. We thank you for staying with us, and we're looking forward to being back with you next Tuesday to continue sharing information with you to help improve your wellness. Doc, your final words?
My final words is, this is a good time to take over your personal care. This is a good time to make sure that your household is healthy and to share information, because we all, just as how we do the gossip thing, information is passed on one person to another. But let it be wholesome. It's a good time for us to remember that we must also preserve our children's health. It's a good time to remember that primary health care is what is the bomb. Okay, it is very important that we But it's also time to remember that you still need to kill off the mosquito them and cover the water and make sure that we don't get dengue and chikungunya and all the other stuff. It's also a good time to wear a mask because there are a lot of respiratory viruses that exist. We learned to wear masks with COVID. I think it's a good time to go back there because while we don't have a lot of, we have people, but it's not a case where we have an endemic. There are a lot of people with the cold and stuff, right? As happens after Carnival, after Christmas. Wear a mask. Wear your mask and practice the things that we did practice during COVID. Hand washing, staying away from people. There's no need to go into no big old party, all the rest. Plus, the money's supposed to be done by now anyway, so we can't party anymore. But wear a mask, wash your hands, stay away from the crowd. Wear a mask. Okay? It is real, the cold that people get. And it lasts long. For some people, they're coughing for weeks and weeks after having a simple little cold. And that can be very unpleasant. But wear a mask.
Yes, indeed. Well, thank you very much, Doc. It was a pleasure indeed. And again, folks, we thank you so very much. And we just want to remind you to please recommit to improving your wellness. That, we urge you to make that one of your major goals for 2026, recommitting to improving your wellness. You'll be happy that you did. So thank you very much again, and of course we look forward to being back with you next Tuesday. Be sure you can join us tomorrow evening from 6 o'clock for our newest program, Managing Your Money. And while we understand that things are difficult for many people, but we also believe that many of us can do a better job, by managing our finances and our resources, to help us to be in a little better position. So join us tomorrow. It's the start of our newest program, Managing Your Money, 6 o'clock right here on K105 FM. Thank you very much, and do have a good night. All the best.
Do you?